Hello everyone, this is Fern once again with a pedalboard rundown. This is actually my updated pedalboard. I just thought I'd give you guys a quick rundown of what I'm currently using. So I'm going to be doing just really quick demos on this video. I'm going to do separate videos and explain a lot of the other details on each of the sections of the pedalboard. But for now, I'm going to be playing into the pedalboard with a PRS S2 Vela, and I'm going to be feeding the board in stereo into 2 amps, a Fender Blues Deluxe Reissue and a Bugera V22. Both of those are mic'd with an R144 ribbon mic by MXL. Sorry, I blanked out there. Each of those has its own mic in a separate room. So I'll just give you a quick rundown on this. Now, let me explain a little bit about the board before I get into it. So there's a couple of changes here. I've added some pedals, and I've replaced some other ones for slightly better quality pedals. But I've gotten rid of the Sans amp, which used to be my direct injection method. So I still have the Sans amp, and I have 2 of them actually, now that I'm running in stereo. But they're on a separate kind of satellite board that I keep, so I'm not going to talk about those today. But that is the biggest difference, is I've gone from a mono setup to a stereo setup, and I'll talk about that a little bit here. But anyway, the demos are going to be played on the PRS S2 Vela. Here's the reference tone. That's the neck pickup. Here's the middle position. And the bridge pickup. So the neck pickup is a brand new PRS Type D pickup, which is very similar to the older D-Armand pickups. The bridge pickup is an S2 Starla pickup humbucker, which has a coil split. So here's a bridge pickup again. All right, so let's look at the drive section really quick. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. Reference signal. Here's my Big Muff Fuzz Big Muff Pi with Tone Wicker Fuzz by Electro-Harmonix. Standard fuzz tone. I love this pedal. I'll talk about this one more in a little bit, or in another video, sorry. So then the Electro-Harmonix Soul Food. This is completely stock. I haven't modded it yet. I actually really like the way it sounds this way, but I use it more of as a dirty boost than anything else. Here's the full tone, full drive 2. Alright, and the OCD by Full Tone, also probably my favorite overdrive. And the Proco Rat 2. Here we go. So between the OCD and the Rat, I really can't decide which of my favorite pedal is. I love the sound of the Rat, but I love the responsiveness of the OCD. Talk about that in another video again. And the last overdrive that I have, distortion, is the MXR Prime Distortion. So there's my drive section. Rocktron Hush pedal is the next pedal in the chain. which is engaged right now because of all the recording equipment around me, so it is a little noisy in here. Then next comes the mower yellow comp, right to the left of that. Grab my pointing stick here. So the mower yellow comp, which is always on for me, and that goes into my Dunlop Volume X volume pedal. Now, my tuner is actually slaved out of the tuner out on the pedal, but I've noticed no detrimental effects on the tone or anything. I do have a couple of pedals on my board that are buffered, so I think that helps with this. So anyway, no issues, works like a charm. I love this pedal, but this is a Polytune 1. Again, I've had this for a long time, so I love it. And after the volume pedal, this goes into the Electro-Harmonix Super Ego. I'll show you a little bit of what that sounds like. For this one, I'm going to use my neck pickup, single coil, add some delay and some reverb. So that's the Super Ego. The way I'm using it right now is with the dry signal up to unity gain, and then the effects blended back to maybe about half the volume of the dry signal. It is an overwhelming pedal, so it gets loud. Now there's a Neo clone right next to the Super Ego, and the Neo clone is a chorus pedal from Electro-Harmonix, but I use that in the effects loop of the Super Ego, so it adds some kind of swirly modulation, but only to the effect. So I love what that does to it. I'll talk about the Super Ego and what it can do and everything that you can do with the effects loop again in another video on its own. So from there, it goes to my Boss DD20. This is a pretty standard pedal. I think a lot of people know it, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But I typically use it... Turn off the reverb over there. I typically use it just as a modulated delay. That's my favorite setting on it, which is stored in my first preset there. So there you see the FS5U foot switch. That's my tap tempo for the DD20. And here I am on my bridge pickup in single coil mode. Let's add a little bit of overdrive to it. So that's the Boss DD20. I love that pedal. Again, there's so much that can be done with that. Let me show you two of my favorite modes on here though, really quick. We have the warp mode, which what it does is it actually ramps up your feedback rate from whatever it's set on the pedal to max. So you start getting into self-oscillation, and it does some really cool stuff to your signal. So I use that a lot for a lot of the ambient stuff that I've been doing. I do play in a lot of the PW, the praise and worship circles. That's lately a lot of what I've been doing, and so that's really useful for some of the ambient effects and a lot of pad effects in the background. The other one is the twist mode. And the twist mode does something very similar, but instead of the feedback, what it does is it ramps up your delay time from whatever it's set to really, really short delays and then back down to really, really long delays when you release the pedal. And what that sounds like is like this. So again, I find that to be useful for some kind of just crazy effects, and especially when you blend it with other stuff, other effects, and then of course you do a lot of post-production stuff. So I like those two settings on it. All right, so the next one we're going to talk about is the M9. I'll spend a lot more time talking about it in a video by itself, but what I do with this one is I just have it set to latch scene mode. So with the push of one button, I can go from different scenes. There's a bypass scene. Nothing is turned on. There's a filter scene. Right now I have it set to an octave up and octave down. Now, that kind of sounds like an Electro-Harmonix micro pog. This one does not track nearly as well. But I kind of like that glitchy kind of bit sound that it gets. Like the Digitech whammy used to. But anyway, I'll talk more about that in the other video. Then I have a delay scene. So that's a stereo delay. You can hear it panning back and forth. I'll talk about that in the other video as well. And then I have 3 different kind of ambient scene modes. Here I am on the neck pickup. There's a slightly different ambient mode, ambient scene. And a 3rd ambient scene. And again, I'll talk about all of those in the video that I'll make for the M9. So out of the M9, then it goes into the Arena Reverb first, and then the Behringer Digital Reverb. Pretty self-explanatory, but the reason I have 2 reverbs is the Digital Reverb is my always-on reverb, and I'll talk about that here in a second. And then the Arena Reverb is going to be kind of my my other option for a modulated ambient reverb. Let me show you that. So this is again on the neck pickup on the Vela. And I actually like using them both together since I don't run any kind of reverb on the amps. That actually substitute as kind of the onboard reverb. Now, because they're both stereo reverbs, they actually play with each other really well. And when it comes out through the amps, or even if I'm going direct, that actually sounds really nice, really kind of 3-dimensional. The way I'm listening to right now from the mixer through headphones, it's just an amazing 3D reverb, which again, I'll explain in its own video. But let me talk about why I have this pedal board set up the way I do. My goal is to be able to run to any amp of any type, single or dual channel or whatever, and still get my sounds. That is why I have so many overdrives, so many options for modulation and reverb. And why I have a reverb that's just always on. It's going to be consistent. I already know what the reverb is going to sound like. I can just go to any amp or any combination of amps, kill a reverb, and still have my reverb on it. This little box over here towards the end of the chain, this is the last thing in my signal chain right here. That is a mini patch bay from This One's Mine. And what that does is it receives the stereo output from all of my other stereo pedals and outputs that either as a regular stereo signal, or you can switch it to a mono sum. There's a little switch to the left of the box. The switch is a custom option. Normally they don't come with a switch. I think it just switches on and off depending on whether or not you plug in a cable to one or the other. But I like having the option because I have the outputs out of this little mini patch bay going into, they're wired into the outputs on the board itself. So out here I have those outputs, which are going to be permanently plugged into the mini patch bay. So the automatic switching wouldn't work for me. So a big thank you to Dan Burgess at This One's Mine for kind of giving me the option to customize that little mini patch bay. So that's just a stereo sum or a mono sum or stereo output little box. So that's my board. That's how I run it. Like I said, I have set it up to where I can go to any amp anywhere, mono or stereo, 1 or 2 amps, and still get my sound, still get what I want. It's just a question of dialing in what I want to do. So I don't rely on amp overdrive, which might sound like sacrilege to a lot of people, but I will use a good tube amp and then just kind of push it with my overdrive pedals, and that is how I've gotten my sound. It's been something that I've been able to do very consistently. So this pedal board setup works really well for me. All right, thanks again for sitting through another pedal board rundown video. This one was a lot more general. If you have any questions on anything specifically, feel free to comment in the comments below, or just inbox me through YouTube or whatever. You can always find me on Twitter or Instagram as Facing the Furies, at Facing the Furies, or just Facebook, Facing the Furies, and you can message me there. But thanks again, guys, and keep on searching for that tone. Thanks again. Until next time.